students over the, some of you were at my birthday party over the weekend, and this was one of the gifts. So as a dare, the dare was I present this. I think this is supposed to be a wizard's rose. And this is my honorary doctorate sword. So I guess the two of them sort of make me a wizard. And I will, as the IPPE wizard, I will introduce our guest speaker, KT Howe, Kit Tai Howe, Professor Kit Tai Howe. Now, KT was my very first postdoc. KT came over to do a postdoc with me in 1990. So, other than
a lot of these people are born.
Other than Rhonda, that probably is the longest connection that I have with anybody in the room. And we've continued. I think last count we had 30 some co-authored publications, maybe more. So it's wonderful to have KT. Now KT comes here every once in a while. He was here last year. He's now an emeritus professor, or are you still a research professor?
Yes.
Maybe both, from Chinese University, Hong Kong. And he's also does all sorts of administrative roles with TIMS and PISA and things like that. So come here. I welcome you as official friend of IPPE, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
So the lights won't work even.
Yeah, just let me know and I'll.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you want the presenter? Yeah.
Yes, the light, the
light.
pointer is the pointer work.
Pointer?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll use the pointer.
Yeah.
Okay. So international comparison are important. So you can't just understand Australian without all the Asian, European, American at the background. Otherwise, you don't know the characteristic you are finding are just particularly with Australian or is common across the world. So you always need other people to compare with. So the next one. But these are made by ChatGPT, the video. And we examine, yes, go on. And we have the next. We examine a total of 32 scales. So these are all the available scales in PISA 2018. We haven't used 2022 because 2018 have a slightly, I don't know, slightly or much more high quality, because in 2022, a lot of schools are under the COVID and a lot of students may not be willing to complete the whole questionnaire, and we have a very long COVID questionnaire at the end, which may damage the earlier part. And these are the scales. So you find most of the important things like learning time, metacognition, self-concept, perceived difficulty, and teacher feedback, interest in teaching, teacher support, discipline, kindness, enjoyment in reading. We'll be using enjoyment in reading in a lot of illustration, being bullied, sense of belonging, and we change everything into positive. I mean, for example, being bullied, we change positive score means less bullying. So everything you see positive is good. High score is good. So we start with that kind of 32 scales, and which are important. And we compare contrast with the achievement. So what we find is that in the first part, these are cognitive scale. So cognitive scale have a huge variation within school. So 50% are within school, while 25, I suppose all these people in the center know multi-level. So we are using this kind of statistical language. 25% are between school, and this is between country. The red is between country, and between school, the blue one is between school. So you have something to talk about because there are differences between school and between countries for the cognitive scale and the SES. And there's slightly more on the time of learning, how much time you spend on study across different countries. But otherwise, all these are very low. So among all these, you have 21 to 28% between school, and similarly percentage between country, and the largest variation is within school. So in most of the school system, there's large, relatively far, 50% variation in students' math, reading, and science within each school. But for these 32 cognitive scales, between country, there's 6%. So in 100% of variation, all these scales, all of them actually have a small percentage of variation between countries and between schools. So all schools, if you plot them a normal distribution, all schools, all countries overlap a huge amount. And 90% are within school. If there's no variation, there's nothing to explain. So if you want to explain differences in joint reading across countries, probably there's nothing to explain. Thank you. And if we calculate slope, we just exemplarily use three sort of highest relation, usually highest relation, SES, gender, and achievement. So we calculate the relation between, for example, joy of reading with SES, joy of reading with gender, the gender difference, and joy of reading with achievement. So high achievers have higher enjoyment in reading, for example. We answered it. And are boys or girls have higher enjoyment in reading? We ask this kind of question. So it's a relation with, and sometimes it's two groups, but we just use the word slope to explain their relations, and we'll be monitoring. We find that in half of the scale and then second. Yes, thank you. I think there's one more point. Yes. So in the gender slope, SES slope, and achievement slope, usually they have the highest relation, usually. But actually the gender and the SES slope are small between countries. So the gender difference in joy reading across different countries, the difference is small. So if girls are higher in enjoyment in reading, is systematically similar across all countries. The difference in these slope are very tiny. And the achievement slope is much larger. So across different countries, in some countries, high achiever have a higher enjoyment in slope. But in some countries, high and low achiever are similarly have similar enjoyment in reading. So the relation with enjoyment in reading has a more variance. So these three slopes are important because SES slope is usually used to monitor social equity. We want high and low SES students have similar enjoyment in reading. We want them to be similar. So SES is usually monitoring social equity. Gender is gender equity. We want boys and girls to be similar. And achievement slope usually reflect, for lots of variables, it reflects the school culture. For example, if in a school, high and low achievers are just having similar, even the high achievers don't have more enjoyment in reading, we suspect there's something wrong with the school. We should cultivate a culture that high achievers value it, and they are doing it more. So for a lot of positive things, we expect high achievers to be doing more of this in the school. But if they are similar, then we think that if they're close to zero, then they're considered undesirable for a lot of the instruments. So, but the results show that with achievement, there's quite variation. So in some countries, high achievers really do not do better in a lot of the instruments. So what we are showing, the second part as well. So what we are showing is that in achievement, in academic achievement,
Doesn't like me going.
academic achievement, there's large difference between country and between school. So some schools are higher in, this is the mean, this is the mean, high academic achievement. And there's some variation within the school, but the variation is not huge. But for motivation, all schools are very similar, close to zero. All schools and all countries are similar, but there's huge variation within school or within country. So this is a pictorial presentation of our result. And we also use three-level, multi-level, and we use simple correlation. So if you see country plot of relation, they are mean of the country in the enjoyment of reading and the quantitative reading score. So these are usually country mean. You will see by variant plot of 80 countries. These are usually means of the scale and means of cognitive achievement. So we show two things. One is the simple correlation, which are usually shown in a league table or whatever graph showing the country performance. And we also use the more sophisticated multi-level to calculate. So what we saw as quite similar is that in the first column, they are still in congruence, in line with the theory, with the textbook. So what you are seeing a positive thing. Positive thing, I think I have a second part, which is the here. So positive thing means they are positively related. We expect them to be shown, other than a few scale which are funny. For example, failure and meaning of life and using direct instruction. They are funny scale. We don't talk about it. But otherwise, all these are positively related. So at the school, within the school level, you find joy of reading is positively related to achievement. So these are in line with the textbook. Then the second line is the school. We're asking whether school with higher joy in reading have higher reading score. So it is a school level. And then we ask the country level. As a country having higher enjoyment in reading in a mean, or country mean enjoy reading, do they have a higher reading score, cognitive reading score? So you find that it actually changed. In the first column, it is mostly positive. But when you slowly go to the third column, both in multi-level and in simple correlation, almost half of the scale or 2/3 of the scale change the direction. So we have two major findings. One is that there's more differences at the country and at the school level. The second thing is that it reverses in direction. Thank you. So, but we usually persuade people, you have to have greater enjoyment in reading, assuming country which has a higher enjoyment in reading will have better score in reading. We assume that, but that's not true. And we just take this kind of implication from the level 1 kind of relation. So level 1 kind of relation is congruent to what the textbook is saying. You still have more joy in reading, they have better reading score. But this only applies within the school. But at the country level, actually the relation reverse. So how can relation reverse? So it's shown pictorially. So within this school, for example, the relation is more or less positive. But once you plot the mean of the school and use the school mean to plot a graph, it can be in the reverse direction for some of the construct. But we find that in 2/3 or most of the construct we examine, actually they change direction. So that's the result show. Thank you. So these haven't been found reported by, I don't know. These are things that actually reported by OECD themselves. So we find, for example, these are the graphs drawn by OECD in the PISA report. You find high satisfaction. So these are the country mean. This is the country mean in the reading and in the life satisfaction kind of scale. So this kind of scale has been reported in the report, but not that systematically as we have done in our study. So satisfaction is this. Anxiety have similar kind. Next one. Anxiety have fear. Anxiety has similar kind of trend. So at the country level, actually what we are talking in the textbook are wrong. Okay, the next one. So we try to pictorially show what is happening. Assuming all the 80 countries have one culture, are in one culture. So whether you are plotting the school or plotting individual student, they are in line, assuming they're in one culture, just one culture. But we find that actually all schools are sort of centering by their school level. What that means is that everyone moves towards the mean, using their other student, using a school as a comparison. So everyone moves inwards. So it becomes something like this. So it's a possible explanation of what's happening. So everyone are not using, so Australian students are not using American student or Asian student as the frame of reference. So when they're asked how happy they are, they'll be just comparing other Australian students. So everyone are using within their school as the norm of reference, then everything go in. And then all the country go to their own country mean. So these are 80 countries and everyone go to their country means. But if there's another force that we haven't measured in a study, for example, pressure in study, anxiety, some Asian country have more drilling or whatever, more pressure in the study, then there could be some negative effects working on at the country level. So the whole country move. So there's a price you have to pay. For example, when you get high score, probably you have to work under a greater pressure. Then I'll leave it to her. I'll stop here.
Oh, really? That's okay. Why don't we go ahead and take some questions now? Probably many of you will recognize that behind the logic here is the big fictional fund effect. Oh, these are your recommendation, KT, not mine.
No, yours. All yours.
So, have any questions for Katie?
Oh, yes. Oh, there's some.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, we have a fifth side of recommendation from and then we go to.
Right, so you go recommendations now?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
So we so from our study, we recommend people, sorry, mix up, routinely check ICC and use whatever other models, and you cannot assume level 1, which are taught in the textbook, can be generalized to level 3. So level 1 and level 3 are different things. So the second one, beyond a league table. And assuming you are a single researcher not doing an international study. So what should you do? You should use, when you are using just scales adapted from PISA study for your own study, you check the validity, so the routine thing. And we suggest that you focus more on the level 1 of relation, because level 2 mess up a lot of things. So actually we have another sampling construction. We said that if you want 500 people, is it better to have 2 schools and get 500 students, or you should have 5 students from each school? So representative-wise, you want more school. But as we have told you that if they have students from different schools, because the variation between different schools are huge and they're reversing the direction, so it's better perhaps just for examining the relation between 2 contracts, probably is better to have 2 large schools than 10 small schools. So that kind of relation, because the level 2 relation will mess up a lot of your relation. If you have 10 countries, each with 10 students, then you mess up everything, because they're level 3 relation that interfere in your level 1 relation. So these are the things, and modern ICC and predictor interaction and a lot of other things that we may have to consider. So we challenge that level 3, there are lots of contextual factor we haven't looked at ever in most of the study. So this is the end of the recommendation.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, so questions, and you probably will recognize that what KP is talking about is closely related to the big fish, little pond effect that we talked about lots and lots. And so particularly some of these reversals, positive effects at L1, negative effects at L2 and or L3 is the classic contextual effects. And I guess what KT is showing here is that pattern of results, maybe not as large as self-concept, but generalizes quite broadly. And I guess the big issue here is that, I mean, most of you have heard of the ecological fallacy, and this is just a warning about the ecological fallacy that particularly correlations at L2 and L3 at the school level and the country level don't represent represent some combination complex combination of L1, L2, and L3. And so they really aren't easily interpretable. And there's lots of educational research that naively makes those interpretations. I guess the other thing that KT, that the presentation shows is that almost all the variables other than achievement that we're interested in have relatively little variance even at the school level and little at the country level. And so when we're explaining country level differences in some of these variables, you run the risk of having a strong prediction of almost nothing. So and we actually saw recently, we were looking at a recent publication in the Journal of Ed Psych, where they are looking at L2 effects, and they had a very strong standardized path going from something or another to an L2 variable. And it looked kind of impressive, but when you look at it, the ICC was less than 1%. And so it was a matter, so it was an issue of explaining reasonably well 1% of the variance. But okay, open it up for other questions.
Me.
Yes, am I?
Yes.
Do they ask what kind of reading material the kids are reading?
No enjoyment. For most of these questions, these are self-perception. Likert scale a lot, you agree a lot, I enjoy reading, and those kind of questions.
It's for a 15-year-old. For myself,
Yeah.
I enjoyed reading, but I read like really bad books, like nothing that was intellectually stimulating at all. So the bigger the fluff, the more enjoyment I got. I just wonder if it's going to be the same thing for these kids.
Theoretically, all these scales or some of these scales have been taken from experts, other experts, or worldwide commonly used scales. So they sort of look at all the literature and identify some reading enjoyment items. And then, for example, readership, are they why reading, reading different literature? I think they have those kind of items. They usually have 8 items in the scales, and then they replicate in over 30-some scales. So these are the longer scale.
I think almost all of those scales come in North American and European research.
Because in the literature, it's dominated by the highest published, right?
But they're tested. They do extensive pilot testing, and so the validity of the scale is tested in pilot studies in countries all over the world before they use them. And so these scales probably are more cross-culturally valid than almost any scales you could find. And completely aside from what KT was talking about, if you're wanting a off-the-shelf scale to measure one of these, the PISA would be a good place to start. It's got a double advantage. One is that you can be sure the scale probably is robust. I think the quality of the robustness is not quite as strong as it used to be. I think that's there's more diversity in that, but also it means that you've got some normative data for comparison. So if you want to look at joy of reading as a function of a reading intervention in Australia, you can look at your results compared to the PISA results in Australia. So there are some advantages to that. But yes, I'm sure that most of the initial scales were first came from U.S. Or Western countries. Weird. Why? When it's a weird country.
Weird.
One question that comes to mind right away is that are you working on the review of all nonsensical PISA results that have already been published? Nonsensical, because a lot of like Bert mentioned one study recently in the top journal.
Yes.
That ends up being somewhat nonsensical when you take the level accuracy. I'm assuming that there are probably 100 PISA studies that are widely cited that present somewhat nonsensical results if you would take all those levels, changes of direction between the levels into account.
Yeah, surely we might have some young people here who'd love to do that sort of research. Finding out how much nonsense is in the literature.
Because what's nonsense in one person's eyes is not necessarily. So, I mean, somebody might argue that even though there's relatively little variance at the country level, it's still important to know what are predictors of that. And so does that make that nonsense?
Well, it makes cross-country comparisons in many of these issues very questionable.
Yeah, that's the whole point of KT's.
And there are tons of those features.
I think one possibility is that student never, so American student will think that he has been working quite hard. But until he sees some other country student working really, so the comparison is usually within the country and within the school. Even in America, I think they're reference when they ask how hard are you working, then they are making reference to their classmates rather than other school or other country student. Perhaps the German side.
I have a favorite anecdote. One of my kids went to Forestry, which is interesting that my kids, they chose that they wanted to go there. So I told them about the big fish little pond effect and so on. In any case, he came back and said he was one of the hardest, he wasn't necessarily the brightest kid in his class, but he was one of the hardest working. He said, "Oh, that's really interesting. I think that there's a lot of Asian kids in Port Street. I thought that they worked really hard." And he said, "Oh, well, they don't count."
They don't count.
So this is a selective frame of reference, which is one of the amazing things about frame of reference. I mean, you don't have to use the class as a frame of reference. You can make up your own frame of reference, although it may not be principal. Okay.
Any other questions from the online audience? Oh yeah, Andrew, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, KT and Herb. I always enjoy the research you do, and such breadth and depth in so much in every slide. Is there, so when there was the first recommendation was always check ICCs. Do you have a sense of what guidelines on that as to, you know, when to model up to also include level 2 and or 3? Did you get a sense of that?
We just have a frame of reference as well. In a cognitive scale, we have around 25% between school and 25% between country. So for the cognitive and SES scale, but for all other instruments, we sort of playing around with 5% each at the country and with the school. So, but 5% as compared to 95% is very small.
Yeah.
For all of the scale, it's surprising that all of the scale. And the one which works slightly better is the time, the amount of time they spend on study. And for the 3 subjects is close to from 5%, you jump to 8%, 10% time between school and between countries. Yes.
So what about studies, for example, so clearly achievement. So that's clearly, you know, there's a lot of variance between schools in achievement. And so what about studies where there's a mix of achievement variables and motivation variables? So some have, so achievement has 25%, motivation has 5%.
Yes, like PISA study.
Sorry?
Yes, such as the PISA study, that you have scales which are low ICC and high ICC. Yes. Then but if you look at the result, then a lot of time, so there are 2 things. One is that there's more ICC. The second is that it reverse. So making it even harder. I mean, if there's no reversal, then we're playing with beta weights at level 3, which are exaggerated. If we are using standardized beta weights, then they're exaggerated because the ICC are really small. For example, the cognitive level achievement at level 3, when you are going to up level, then the reliability improve, And you find, for example, for the free achievement at country level, they are correlated at 0.995, 96. So really high, and at the school level is already 0.92. So correlation between different subjects are 0.92 correlated. So a lot of time when you're moving up the level, if you are using standardized relation, it really do not tell the real relation. I don't know.
Andrew, I might respond to that one as well. If the focus is on the L2 variable, then I think that the 5% rule is reasonable. It doesn't say that you can't look at it, but you have to realize what that is. But oftentimes when you're looking, like if big fish, little pond effect, you're looking at school average achievement, but you're really looking at you're looking at the contextual effect at the individual level. And so if the focus of the study is on L1 and has L2 and L3 related to that might be reasonable. And if you are going to use, another tricky bit is that you probably shouldn't be standardizing. You shouldn't use standardized paths at L2 and L3 because they distort the perspective. So it says that one standard deviation change in something that has almost no variance results in something. And so what I typically do is I standardize everything to begin with at L1, and then the L2 and L3 variables are based upon L1 aggregates, and then use unstandardized regression coefficients. And they would more accurately show that the effect is pretty small. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Herb. Thanks, KT.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Any other questions before we move on to the second half? Oh, yeah. I'll forward it for you, Herb. So I'm just going to stop recording here. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Now, we went to